Hi guitarlings, I'm Gray and this is Hub Guitar. Today we're going to do Minuet in G. If you've ever studied piano, you probably played this tune because it's one of the most famous pieces of repertoire for piano. Here we have it arranged for guitar. It happens to fit quite nicely in the open position of the guitar. So let's begin. We're going to start out with a G major chord, that's 3rd fret of the 6th string, open 4th string, open 3rd string, and 3rd fret of the 2nd string. That's for a quarter note. Open 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and then open 5th and 2nd strings to the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and then going back to what's basically another type of G chord, only this time we've got B in the bottom and D on top. So that's 2nd fret of the 5th string and 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So we've gone from quarter, 8th, 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 quarter, quarter, quarter. And then we've got those two follow-up notes on the open G string all together. Now in measure 3 we're going to go to a C major chord, so we're going to put our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 5th string and play that with the open E string. And then we're going to continue the melody from 1st fret of the 2nd string, 3rd fret of the 2nd string, open 1st string, 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then up to this chord shape here. So we've got B on the 2nd fret of the 5th string and G on the 3rd fret of the high E string. And then it's going to follow up with those two open G string notes again. Here's measures 3 and 4 again. Be sure that when you're playing consecutive notes that go along a single string, as we have here in the 2nd and 3rd beats of measure 3, that you try to use some alternation of your picking hand. Don't let one finger pull all of the weight there. Make sure that you share that workload. So you're going to use your ring finger and your thumb maybe to play those first notes, but then you're going to alternate between your index and middle to play the next 4. So you could do index, middle, and then back to your ring finger to pluck the first note of measure 4. It doesn't really matter if you index, middle, or middle, index, or even some other combination. The key here is that you don't want one finger to be doing all of the work. So this is a very important technique in fingerstyle or classical guitar. Going to measure 5, we're going to start with an open A on the 5th string as well as the 1st fret of the 2nd string. And the melody continues to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, 1st fret, open 2nd string, and 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Now regardless of whether you've got an open string or a fretted note in the bass of each of these measures, you want to try to visualize that any chord, any bass note that you're starting out with on beat 1 is probably going to stretch its way all the way across to the end of the measure. So don't let yourself kill that open string. See how I touched it again and suddenly there was a sort of silence. We want that to ring out, because that open string is mixing with not only the note it comes with, but also with the notes that are to follow. Measure 6 has a similar theme, 3rd fret of the 6th string and open 2nd string. And now in measure 7, we're going to go to 5 and 4 on strings 5 and 4. You can do that with any pair of fingers. I think in a perfect world you probably would use your pinky and 3rd finger, that way you don't exit the open position. That way you can come back to the proper position for the next notes on frets 2 and 3. But you might find that you're comfortable doing it with your index and 2nd finger. You just have to jump a little bit faster. So it's important to compare different fingering options and see not only which one seems theoretically the best in a perfect world, but also which one's working the best for you right now, based on your current level of playing ability. Now in measure 8, the bass definitely takes the focus here, so make sure you let that come out. Don't play that in a meek or mild way. That is the bottom half of the voice, the bass voice, speaking out its part and leading the way to the measure 9. So make sure that you play that out. Don't play that mildly. Here's measures 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're back on measure 9. So measure 9 has a similar theme. Notice that we've got some more bass notes here, so the thumb is doing some work on the picking hand to pluck those out. Consider measure 10 to be a chord. where all of the work is really your plucking hand, and you should have all of these notes that are needed already nice and safe in your left hand. It's just your plucking hand that's got to do the work of playing those out. In other words, you shouldn't start that measure, like this and then shifting around to grab the next one. That would be kind of a waste of effort. So think of that as a whole chord, as you will often find in many songs. Measure 11. We've encountered that before. This little bass line here is quite similar to the one that appeared in measure 8. Notice starting that in measure 13, we're going to have some more notes in the bass. So the finger we choose to play the bass note is kind of important. We don't want to choose a finger that's going to make it awkward to play the melody notes either before, during, or after that bass note. For example, if I use the wrong finger here, like say I use my third finger, it's going to be pretty hard now to reach that second fret of the third string because I'm running out of fingers to use. So I like to use the second finger there, the middle finger, for the second fret of the sixth string in measure 13. And then you can use a third finger for the first note of measure 14. For the 2 and 2 there, I just use the second and third fingers. And then I switch them around to get the chord in measure 15. Notice that if you're holding this correctly, you can actually play the next 2 notes without lifting that chord up. Which is great because now you can play that next note, the second fret, for free. And you can get that one for free too, and if you can reach your pinky here to the 4th fret of the 4th string, now you're done. Measure 16 is a cadence, so let that ring. Don't be afraid to spend a little time on that resolution. There's no fixed amount of time that a cadence should last for. So here's measures 13, 14, 15, and 16. You may have noticed that instead of doing what I suggested, I actually just moved my first and second fingers up to 5 and 4 at the end of measure 15. That's pretty comfortable for me because I don't find it difficult to jump. That's why it's pretty important to compare different ways to finger it and see which one works the best for you. All right, now we're headed into the B section and we're climbing up the neck a little bit. We're going all the way up to the 7th fret. In a situation like this, it's important to think about what finger you're going to lead the way with. You don't want to jump up here with your index finger because you're going back down. You want your pinky finger here so that you can reach the notes that are to follow. So I've got 7 and open. And there's a little melody that climbs up the first string and back down. Notice that my plucking hand, I'm sharing the work between 2 fingers. The next chord in measure 18 is a little bit tricky. Ideally, you would get that with your 3rd and 4th fingers, and then get the next note on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string with your 2nd finger. That way you can play the open, and then use your 1st and 2nd. That would be a very nice and natural way to play measure 18. But you're just going to have to experiment and see if that's comfortable for you. If you can pull it off, that's pretty smooth, but you might have to make some compromises to your fingering there. We're going to go next to measure 19. Notice that I've kind of grouped the last beat together as a single chord. Nothing too hard there. We've got this nice little run up the scale. So practice that slowly. Don't forget your alternating picking. Measure 22 can be a little bit tricky, so you might need to practice that a few times. Measure 23 is very interesting because I think in a perfect world you might like to bar across the 2nd frets of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings, and then you'd have something like this. If I do that, I have very little extra work to do once I've got that bar down. I do have to reach my finger to the 3rd fret. That's not too bad. But the only thing is the preceding note on the 4th fret of the 5th string is a little bit hard to jump from, so you have to just, again, experiment and see if that's comfortable for you. If that's not comfortable for you, you can just do some switching around like this. See, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to minimize the motion of my fretting hand. I don't want to pick notes up and put them back down, especially if it leads to me moving my hand an unnecessary number of times. I want to try to hold a chord-like shape as much as possible. That's going to make everything smoother in the long term. Measure 24 is pretty straightforward. Now measure 25 and 6. I actually deleted a couple bass notes in this arrangement just to make that sound more smooth on the guitar and bring out the guitar's unique quality of notes that kind of sustain and blend together, especially when you're having a mixture of open and fretted notes. So I deleted a couple notes. Originally it was this. And you'll find that not only is there not really much missing if you delete a couple of the notes, but actually you've got that really nice ability to sustain on the guitar. So I think that actually sounds better on the guitar. So to do that, we're going to start by holding down the 2nd fret of the 5th string and the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. That's going to be with your index finger on the 5th string and probably your 3rd finger on the 2nd string. Then you can go ahead and put your pinky finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string because you're going to need that in a second. That turns measure 25 from a series of notes that you've got to fret to a single chord that you can get down and then just worry about your right hand plucking pattern. For measure 26, if you just slide that note on the 5th string up 1 fret, that's it. So that's pretty smooth to do on guitar. I think it's worth sacrificing a couple notes there to get that effect. Measures 27 and 28. Measure 29. Again, I'm using my 2nd and 3rd fingers on this shape at the 3rd beat. Open B string, now we're on measure 30. Same shape again. Now I'm going to use my 2nd finger to begin measure 31, follow with my 3rd finger to my index finger on the 2nd fret, and I'm probably just going to, at this point, use 1st and 2nd fingers for this 5th and 4th fret shape, and then we've just got a little arpeggio on measure 32 to sum it up. So that's it for Minuet in G. Great tune, famous world over. So in terms of adding a new piece to your repertoire, if you're the beginner towards the intermediate level, I think it's an awesome tune to learn because at least when you're playing it, almost everybody can recognize this. In my home office, I even have a water boiler that sings this tune every time the water is heated. So it's a very, very well-known tune and worth adding to your repertoire. That's it. Thanks for watching.